creation scientist, because there are so many discoveries out there that are just waiting for us.
We're able to ask questions.
Sorry about the snoring. That's my husband.
And so that's what's kind of driven you to this research now, right? I mean, because the conventional paradigm would have never gone in to take samples.
No, they haven't.
Look at
They've
that fold.
just talked about these folds and just assumed that they were formed long after the rocks were
Right.
formed, and therefore there had to be mechanisms that allowed the rock to bend when it was very hard. As creation scientists, we think these layers were laid down during the flood. The folding occurred only a year later, the year of the flood.
No, I'm
Mountains and
videoing.
plateaus were rising in the west. If that's the case, we wouldn't expect there to be evidence of the rocks changing under heat and pressure. That's what we're investigating and why we're making thin sections to look inside the rocks. From looking at it, anyone looking at these folds, you can see immediately they're so smooth that it seemed intuitively that these had to have been formed when they were soft. But we had to go in and get the sample so we could confirm.
So I wanted to get to the part where they're talking about Colorado.
The continent and beyond.
So Andrew, the layer we were looking at in Grand Canyon is the Tapeats sandstone that's down here at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. We can trace that layer into the Colorado Rocky Mountains near Colorado Springs. We can trace it into the Black Hills, and we can trace that same layer up to Greenland as a continuous sheet with no breaks in it.
So that kind of an understanding of a layer that is so huge leads your thinking more to something global than just something local.
So that tells you something not only about the scale, but we think the flood eroded away enormous sections of the pre-flood continents, then deposited that material in layers one on top of the other. It's like a stack of pancakes miles deep all over the earth.
And so when we talked about the layers, those layers are all formed as a result of sediment.
All right, wait for it.
Talk about those layers, first of all, and how they were formed, and the layers in that we wanted to look at, and why we wanted to look at them.
We wanted to look at those specific layers because they're at the bottom of that huge stack. If those layers were still soft when they were folded, they can't be hundreds of millions of years old.
So imagine the sand being washed up on a beach. How does it get cemented? How does it turn from sand into sandstone? So what happens is when it's deposited, there's water in between those sand grains, but the water has chemicals dissolved in it. And so when the water dries out, those chemicals precipitate and fill in all the spaces between the sand grains and harden it, making it cement.
Yep.
We think a lot of that cement and some of the grains would have broken if the layers were hard when they were bent.
Well, after the layers were deposited, everyone agrees that the Colorado Plateau was pushed up. It was part of the mountain building event connected to the Rocky Mountains. We think
The Colorado Plateau. That is your state, my lady. Thought this might interest you. Hope you enjoyed it.